This episode focuses on the story of Esther, Mordecai, and Haman's plot to annihilate the Jews in Persia. Set during the time of the Persian Empire, this narrative reveals how God worked behind the scenes to protect His people, even when they were far from their homeland. Esther's courage and Mordecai's faith were instrumental in saving the Jewish people from destruction, demonstrating that God's providence is always at work, even in the darkest times. The story of Esther takes place in the Persian Empire under the rule of King Xerxes, also known as Ahasuerus. Esther, a young Jewish woman, was raised by her cousin Mordecai after losing her parents. When Xerxes deposed his queen, Vashti, he sought a new queen through an empire-wide beauty contest. Esther was selected for her beauty and grace, but she kept her Jewish identity a secret, following Mordecai's advice. Meanwhile, Haman, a high-ranking official in Xerxes' court, was elevated to a position of power. Proud and ruthless, Haman demanded that everyone bow down to him. Mordecai, however, refused, explaining that as a Jew, he would not bow to any man. Infuriated, Haman plotted not only to kill Mordecai, but to annihilate all the Jews in the Persian Empire. Haman convinced Xerxes to issue an edict allowing for the massacre of the Jewish people on a specific day, sealing their fate. When Mordecai learned of the decree, he donned sackcloth and ashes and mourned publicly. He sent a message to Esther, urging her to approach the king and plead for the lives of her people. This was no simple request. Approaching the king without being summoned could result in death. Esther initially hesitated, fearing for her life. But Mordecai's words stirred her resolve. He reminded her, "Who knows but that you have come to your royal position for such a time as this?" Inspired, Esther asked the Jews to fast and pray for 3 days before she approached the king, demonstrating both faith and courage. Esther approached the king and was granted an audience. She invited Xerxes and Haman to a banquet, skillfully building up to her request. At the second banquet, Esther revealed her Jewish identity and exposed Haman's plot, pleading for the lives of her people. Shocked and enraged, Xerxes ordered Haman to be executed on the very gallows he had prepared for Mordecai. The king then issued a new decree, allowing the Jews to defend themselves, and when the appointed day arrived, the Jews triumphed over their enemies. In celebration of their deliverance, the Jewish people established the Feast of Purim, a festival commemorating how God saved them from annihilation. This story became a reminder of God's providence and faithfulness, even when His presence seemed hidden. Through Esther's courage, Mordecai's wisdom, and God's unseen hand, the Jewish people were saved from destruction. The story of Esther reminds us that God can use anyone, in any circumstance, to fulfill His purpose. Applications. Esther's bravery in approaching the king, despite the risk, encourages us to stand up for what is right, even when it's dangerous or difficult. Though God's name is never mentioned in the book of Esther, His hand is clearly at work, reminding us that God often works behind the scenes in unseen ways. Mordecai's guidance and encouragement to Esther show the value of having faithful mentors who help us discern God's purpose and strengthen us in challenging times. Esther's request for fasting and prayer before taking action underscores the importance of seeking God's guidance and strength in moments of crisis. The establishment of Purim as a reminder of God's deliverance encourages us to remember and celebrate God's acts of faithfulness in our own lives.